My name is Lydia Pearson, and I never thought I'd find myself packing my life into boxes at 55. Yet here I am, carefully wrapping photo frames and mementos while my husband of 30 years paces downstairs, his footsteps echoing through the house we once called our dream home. The creak of the front door sends a chill down my spine. I know who it is without looking. Gideon? Eleanor's shrill voice carries up the stairs. Is she gone yet? I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. With one last glance around the bedroom, I pick up my suitcase and head downstairs. The living room falls silent as I enter. Gideon stands by the fireplace, his face a mask of indifference. Eleanor and Vernon, my soon-to-be ex-in-laws, perch on the sofa like vultures waiting to pick at a carcass. Well, Eleanor snaps, her eyes narrowing. What are you waiting for? I meet her gaze, refusing to be cowed. I'm leaving, Eleanor. Isn't that what you've always wanted? Vernon clears his throat. Now, Lydia, there's no need for dramatics. This is for the best, you know. The best for whom? I can't help but ask, even though I know the answer. Gideon finally speaks, his voice cold and unrecognizable. You never belonged here, Lydia. The words sting, but I won't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Instead, I straighten my spine and look him directly in the eye. You're right, Gideon. I don't belong here anymore. I turn to leave, but Eleanor's voice stops me. Don't forget to leave your keys. With deliberate slowness, I reach into my pocket and pull out my keyring. The house key glints in the afternoon light as I place it on the side table. I hope you're happy now, I say, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Eleanor's lips curl into a smug smile. Oh, we will be, won't we, Gideon? I watch as my husband nods, avoiding my gaze. In that moment, I see him for what he truly is, a puppet, dancing to his parents' tune. As I step out onto the porch, a wave of emotions threatens to overwhelm me. But I push it down, focusing on the path ahead. I've anticipated this moment for months, quietly preparing for the inevitable. Lydia, Gideon calls out, following me to my car. For a moment, I see a flicker of the man I once loved. I'm sorry it came to this. I pause, my hand on the car door. Are you, Gideon? Are you really? He falters, glancing back at the house where his parents watch from the window. It's complicated. No, I say, shaking my head. It's actually very simple. You chose them over me, over us. You always have. That's not fair, he protests weakly. I laugh, a short, bitter sound. Fair? Was it fair when your mother criticized every decision I made? When your father belittled my career? When you stood by and let it happen year after year? Gideon's face crumples, but I'm beyond caring. I've spent too many years trying to fit into a family that never wanted me. Goodbye, Gideon, I say, climbing into my car. I hope you enjoy the life they've chosen for you. As I drive away, I catch a glimpse of Gideon in my rearview mirror, standing alone on the driveway. For a moment, I feel a pang of sadness for the life we could have had. But then I remember the look of triumph on Eleanor's face, and my resolve hardens. They think they've won, but they have no idea what's coming. I may be leaving this house, but I'm far from defeated. In fact, this is just the beginning. Eleanor, Vernon, and Gideon are about to learn that they've severely underestimated Lydia Pearson. And I can't wait to teach them that lesson. The motel room feels sterile and impersonal, but it's a sanctuary compared to the suffocating atmosphere I left behind. I sit on the edge of the bed, a photo album open on my lap, tracing the contours of a younger, happier version of myself. Where did we go wrong, Gideon? I whisper to the smiling face in the photograph. A knock at the door startles me. Lydia? It's Ruth. Can I come in? I open the door to find my best friend holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I thought you could use this, she says, her eyes full of concern. As we settle on the small couch, Ruth pours the wine. How are you holding up? I take a long sip before answering. I don't know. Angry, relieved, scared. That's understandable, Ruth nods. Want to talk about it? The words tumble out. a torrent of memories and emotions I've kept bottled up for years. I tell her about the early days of my marriage to Gideon, how we'd been so in love, so full of dreams. We were going to conquer the world together, I say, a wry smile on my face. But then, his parents, Ruth finishes for me. I nod, remembering the first time I met Eleanor and Vernon. Their disapproval had been palpable, their smiles tight and insincere. They never thought I was good enough for their precious son. But Gideon loved you, Ruth reminds me gently. He did. I agree, my voice barely above a whisper. At least, I thought he did. I recount how things changed gradually, how Eleanor's subtle digs became more frequent, how Vernon's dismissive attitude towards my career grew more pronounced, and how Gideon, caught between his wife and his parents, slowly began to drift away. I tried so hard to make it work, I say, tears threatening to spill. I renovated that house, thinking if I could just make it perfect. Ruth takes my hand. It wasn't your fault, Lydia. You can't change people who don't want to change. Her words hit home, and suddenly, I see the truth of my situation with startling clarity. The house I'd poured my heart and soul into wasn't a home, it was a prison. A gilded cage where I'd been slowly suffocating, trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. You're right, I say, straightening my shoulders. I've been holding on to a dream that died a long time ago. Ruth smiles, a glint of mischief in her eyes. So, what are you going to do now? I think about the mortgage transfer I'd quietly arranged, knowing Gideon and his parents were planning to sell the house behind my back. A small smile plays on my lips. I'm going to take back control of my life. That's my girl. Ruth cheers, raising her glass. To new beginnings. As we clink glasses, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. The road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in years, I feel truly free. Later that night, as I lie in the unfamiliar bed, my phone buzzes with a text. It's from Elijah, our son. Mom, I heard what happened. Are you okay? Can we talk? My heart swells with love and gratitude. Despite everything, I have my son's support. I type back a quick reply, arranging to meet him for coffee the next day. As I drift off to sleep, I realize that the house I left behind was never really my home. Home, I now understand, is not a place, it's the people who love and support you no matter what. Tomorrow, I'll start building my new home, brick by brick, on my own terms. And neither Gideon nor his parents will have any say in it. The thought brings a smile to my face as I close my eyes, ready to face whatever challenges the new day might bring. The cafe bustles with morning activity as I wait for Elijah. My fingers drum nervously on the table, anticipation building in my chest. When I spot him weaving through the crowd, my heart swells with pride. He's grown into such a fine young man, despite the turmoil of our family life. Mom, Elijah says, wrapping me in a tight hug. I'm so sorry about everything. I squeeze him back, fighting tears. It's not your fault, sweetheart. How are you holding up? We settle into our seats, and Elijah's face grows serious. I'm worried about you, Mom. Dad's been acting strange, and Grandma and Grandpa are on the warpath. A chill runs down my spine. What do you mean? Elijah leans in, lowering his voice. I overheard them talking. They're planning to sell the house, Mom. Without telling you. The betrayal hits me like a physical blow, but I'm not entirely surprised. I'd suspected something was amiss for weeks. I see, I say, keeping my voice steady. And your father's going along with this? Elijah nods, his expression a mix of anger and disappointment. He's completely under their thumb. I try to talk to him, but he won't listen. I reach across the table, squeezing his hand. Thank you for telling me, Elijah. I appreciate your honesty. As we finish our coffee, I make a decision. It's time to protect myself and ensure that Gideon and his parents face the consequences of their actions. Later that day, I visit my lawyer, Sarah. Her office is a haven of calm professionalism, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil I've been experiencing. Lydia, Sarah greets me warmly. What can I do for you today? I take a deep breath, steeling myself. I need to make some changes to our mortgage arrangement. Sarah listens intently as I explain the situation, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. When I finish, she leans back in her chair, considering. What you're proposing is legal, she says slowly, but it's a bold move. Are you sure about this? I nod, my resolve strengthening. I'm sure. They've left me no choice. Over the next hour, we draft the necessary paperwork to transfer the mortgage solely into Gideon's name. It's a risky move, but one that will protect my financial interests and force Gideon to face the reality of his choices. As I leave Sarah's office, a mix of emotions swirls within me. Part of me feels guilty for taking such drastic action, but a stronger part knows it's necessary. I've spent too many years being the accommodating wife, the peacemaker. It's time to stand up for myself. That evening, as I sit in my motel room, my phone buzzes with a text from Gideon. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the house tomorrow? I stare at the message, my heart racing. Does he know what I've done? Has Elijah said something? After a moment's hesitation, I type back a simple reply. Okay. 10 a.m. Sleep eludes me that night as I toss and turn, imagining all the possible scenarios for tomorrow's confrontation. But beneath the anxiety, there's a current of strength I haven't felt in years. I'm no longer the woman who will bend to Gideon's will or cower before Eleanor and Vernon's disapproval. As dawn breaks, I rise and prepare myself for the day ahead. I choose my outfit carefully, a smart blouse and trousers that make me feel confident and powerful. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognize the woman staring back at me. Her eyes are clear, her posture straight. She looks ready for battle. You can do this, Lydia, I tell my reflection. You're stronger than they know. With one last deep breath, I grab my keys and head out the door. It's time to face Gideon and set my plan in motion. Whatever happens next, I know I'm ready. The days of being a victim are over. Now, it's my turn to take control. The key turns in the lock of my new apartment, and I step inside, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and possibility. It's small, nothing like the sprawling house I left behind, but it's mine. All mine. Well, what do you think? Ruth asks, setting down a box labeled kitchen. I turn to her, a genuine smile spreading across my face. It's perfect. We spend the afternoon unpacking, filling the empty spaces with pieces of my life. Each item I place feels like a small act of defiance against the control Gideon and his parents tried to exert over me. As evening falls, Ruth and I collapse onto the couch, surveying our handiwork. You know, she says, a mischievous glint in her eye, I've been thinking about those crafting classes you used to teach. I raise an eyebrow. What about them? Why don't you start them up again? The community center is always looking for new instructors. The idea takes root, growing with each passing moment. You really think I could? Ruth rolls her eyes. Lydia, you're the most talented crafter I know. Of course you could. The next morning, fueled by Ruth's encouragement and my own determination, I march into the community center. The director, a kind-faced woman named Maria, listens intently as I pitch my idea for a series of crafting classes. This sounds wonderful, Lydia, she says, her eyes lighting up. When can you start? Just like that, I have a new purpose. I throw myself into planning the classes, rediscovering the joy that creating with my hands has always brought me. It's more than just a distraction from the pain of my failed marriage. It's a lifeline, pulling me towards a future I'm excited to embrace. The day of my first class arrives, and I'm a bundle of nerves. What if no one shows up? What if I've forgotten how to teach? But as people begin to trickle in, their faces eager and curious, my anxiety melts away. Welcome, everyone, I say, surprised by the strength in my voice. Today, we're going to learn the art of paper quilling. As I demonstrate the technique, guiding my students through each step, I feel a sense of fulfillment I haven't experienced in years. This is who I am, who I've always been, before Gideon and his parents tried to mold me into their idea of the perfect wife. After class, a young woman approaches me, her completed project clutched proudly in her hands. Thank you, Mrs.
Pearson, she says.
I never thought I could make something so beautiful. I smile, touched by her words. It's Ms. Pearson now. I correct gently. And you're very welcome. The beauty was always there. You just needed to discover it. As I lock up the classroom, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Elijah. How was your first day of classes, Mom? So proud of you. Tears prick at my eyes, but they're tears of joy. Despite everything, I have my son's support, and that means more than any house or marriage ever could. Walking home, I feel lighter than I have in years. The setting sun paints the sky in vibrant hues, and I'm struck by how long it's been since I truly appreciated such simple beauty. I've been so focused on surviving, on trying to please Gideon and his parents, that I forgot how to live. But not anymore. With each step, each breath, I'm reclaiming my life. The road ahead won't be easy. I know there will be challenges, moments of doubt and fear. But for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to face them. As I reach my apartment building, I pause, looking up at the window I now call home. It's not the grand house I once shared with Gideon, but it's a sanctuary of my own making. A place where I can be myself, without judgment or criticism. I climb the stairs, my mind already buzzing with ideas for tomorrow's class. The future stretches out before me, full of possibilities I'm only beginning to imagine. And I can't wait to explore every single one of them. The sharp knock on my apartment door cuts through the peaceful Saturday morning like a knife. I freeze, paintbrush in hand, recognizing the aggressive rhythm instantly.
Gideon.
Lydia, open this door right now. His voice, muffled but unmistakably furious, sends a chill down my spine. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. This confrontation was inevitable, but I hadn't expected it so soon. Carefully setting down my half-finished craft project, I move towards the door. As I turn the handle, I'm greeted by a sight that would have once terrified me. Gideon, red-faced and seething, flanked by Eleanor and Vernon. Their expressions a mix of anger and smug satisfaction. Well, Eleanor sneers, pushing past me into the apartment. So this is where you've been hiding. I stand my ground, refusing to be intimidated. I'm not hiding, Eleanor. What do you want? Gideon thrusts a stack of papers in my face. What the hell is this, Lydia? How dare you transfer the mortgage to my name? I meet his gaze steadily. I did what I had to do to protect myself, Gideon. You were planning to sell the house without my knowledge, weren't you? His momentary flicker of guilt confirms my suspicions. Vernon steps forward, his voice dripping with condescension. Now, Lydia, be reasonable. We were only trying to do what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? I laugh, the sound hollow and bitter. You mean best for yourselves. You've never had my interests at heart, any of you. Eleanor's eyes narrow dangerously. Watch your tone, young lady. We've put up with your ingratitude for far too long. Ingratitude. The word ignites a fire within me. I gave 30 years of my life to this family. I renovated that house, supported Gideon's career, raised our son. And all I got in return was criticism and manipulation. Gideon's face pales. Lydia, that's not fair. We can work this out. Just transfer the mortgage back and we can talk about it. I shake my head, feeling a strange calm settle over me.
No, Gideon.
I'm done talking. I'm done compromising. You made your choice when you sided with your parents over me, time and time again. But we can't afford the payments, he explodes. You've ruined us. I've ruined you? I repeat incredulously. You are going to sell our home, the home we built together, without even telling me. You've been letting your parents dictate our lives for years. If anyone's ruined this family, Gideon, it's you. Eleanor steps forward, her voice sickly sweet. Now, Lydia, let's not be hasty. We're family after all. Surely we can come to some arrangement. I turn to her, years of pent-up frustration finally finding voice. We're not family, Eleanor. We never were. You made that abundantly clear from the day I married your son. Vernon's face darkens. You ungrateful little. That's enough. I cut him off, surprising even myself with the authority in my voice. I want all of you to leave.
Now.
Gideon reaches for my arm, his expression desperate. Lydia, please. We can't lose the house. Where will we go? For a moment, I almost waver. But then I remember the years of subtle put-downs, the constant criticism, the way they slowly chipped away at my self-worth. I gently, but firmly remove his hand. That's not my problem anymore, Gideon. You chose your parents over me. Now you can live with that choice. As I usher them towards the door, Eleanor turns, her face twisted with malice. This isn't over, Lydia. You'll regret this. I meet her gaze unflinchingly. No, Eleanor. The only thing I regret is not doing this years ago. The door closes behind them, and I lean against it, my heart pounding. But beneath the adrenaline, I feel something else, pride. For the first time in years, I stood up for myself. I refused to be manipulated or cowed. As I returned to my craft table, I realized that Eleanor was right about one thing. This isn't over. But whatever comes next, I'll face it on my own terms. The days of being a victim are behind me. Now, I'm the author of my own story, and I intend to make it a good one. The weeks following Gideon's unexpected visit pass in a blur of activity. I throw myself into my crafting classes, finding solace in the rhythmic motions of creation and the genuine appreciation of my students. But beneath the surface, a storm is brewing. One crisp autumn morning, as I'm setting up for class, my phone buzzes with a text from Elijah. Mom, we need to talk. Dad's not doing well. My heart clenches, a mix of concern and frustration washing over me. Despite everything, I can't help but worry about Gideon. I arranged to meet Elijah for coffee after my class. The local cafe is bustling when I arrive, but Elijah's troubled face stands out in the crowd. As I slide into the seat across from him, he doesn't waste time with pleasantries. Dad's a mess, Mom, he says, his voice low and urgent. He's drowning in debt, and Grandma and Grandpa are making everything worse. They're constantly berating him, blaming him for losing the house. I feel a pang of guilt, quickly followed by a surge of anger. Elijah, your father made his choices. He chose to side with them over me for years. Elijah nods, his expression torn. I know, Mom, but I think he's finally starting to see the truth. He called me last night, completely broken. He said he's realized how much damage his parents have done, to him and to you. I sit back, stunned. After all these years, could Gideon finally be waking up to the reality of his parents' manipulation? What do you want me to do, Elijah? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He reaches across the table, taking my hand. Just
Talk to him, Mom. Please.
I think he needs to make amends, for his sake as much as yours. Against my better judgment, I agree to meet Gideon. The next day, I find myself sitting in a park, watching as my estranged husband approaches. The man before me is a far cry from the confident, controlling figure who stormed into my apartment weeks ago. He looks haggard, defeated. Lydia, he says, his voice hoarse. Thank you for meeting me. I nod, keeping my expression neutral. What do you want, Gideon? He collapses onto the bench beside me, his shoulders slumping. I owe you an apology. So many apologies, I don't even know where to start. The beginning might be good, I say, surprised by the lack of bitterness in my voice. Gideon takes a shaky breath. I've been a fool, Lydia. For years, I let my parents control me, control us. I thought I was being a good son, but I was just being a coward. I was so afraid of disappointing them that I ended up destroying the best thing in my life, our marriage. I listen in silence, my emotions a tangled mess. Part of me wants to comfort him, while another part screams to guard my heart. I understand if you can't forgive me, he continues. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong I was, how much I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. For a moment, I'm transported back to the early days of our marriage, when Gideon was kind and loving, before his parents' influence poisoned everything. But then I remember the years of pain, of feeling invisible and unvalued in my own home. I appreciate your apology, Gideon. I say carefully, but it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the pain or the years we lost. He nods, his eyes filled with regret. I know. I don't expect you to take me back or to fix things. I needed you to know that I understand now. And I'm going to make changes, starting with setting boundaries with my parents. As I watch Gideon walk away, his shoulders bowed under the weight of his realizations, I feel a strange mix of emotions. There's relief that he finally sees the truth, sadness for the years we lost, and a surprising sense of freedom. I realize that Gideon's apology, while appreciated, doesn't change my path forward. I've found strength in my independence, in the life I'm building for myself. And while the wounds of the past may never fully heal, I'm no longer defined by them. As I head home, I feel lighter, as if a burden I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted. The future stretches out before me, full of possibilities, and for the first time in years, I'm excited to see where it leads. The crisp autumn air carries a sense of change as I make my way to the community center for my weekly crafting class. My phone buzzes insistently in my pocket, but I ignore it, focusing on the day ahead. It's only when I reach the parking lot that I finally check the messages. My heart sinks as I see a barrage of texts from Elijah. Mom, things have gotten worse. Grandma and Grandpa are tearing Dad apart. He needs help. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. After class, I drive to Gideon's apartment, a sense of dread growing with each mile. The building is run down, a far cry from our once pristine home. I knock on the door, half expecting to be greeted by Eleanor's disapproving scowl. Instead, Gideon opens the door, looking more haggard than ever. "Lydia," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect you to come." I step inside, taking in the chaos of the small apartment. Elijah was worried. I explain, keeping my voice neutral. "What's going on, Gideon?" He collapses onto a worn couch, his head in his hands. "It's all falling apart, Lydia. The house. I can't keep up with the payments. And my parents." As if on cue, the door bursts open, revealing Eleanor and Vernon. Their eyes narrow when they see me. "What is she doing here?" Eleanor spits, her voice dripping with venom. I stand my ground, meeting her gaze. "I'm here because my son is worried about his father." "What are you doing here, Eleanor?" Vernon steps forward, his face red with anger. "We're here to knock some sense into our son." "This is all your fault, Lydia. If you hadn't been so selfish." "Enough." Gideon's voice cuts through the tension. We all turn to look at him, shocked by the sudden outburst. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending." Eleanor's face softens, her voice sickly sweet. "Darling, what are you talking about? We're only trying to help." "No," Gideon interrupts, his voice gaining strength. "You're not helping. You never have. All you've ever done is control and manipulate me. You drove Lydia away, and now you're trying to blame her for the mess you created." I watch in stunned silence as years of pent-up frustration pour out of Gideon. He turns to me, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Lydia. I should have stood up to them years ago. I should have chosen you." Eleanor's face contorts with rage. "How dare you speak to us like this? After everything we've done for you." "What have you done for me?" Gideon demands. "You've criticized every decision I've made. You've undermined my marriage, my career, my happiness. And for what? To keep me under your thumb?" Vernon steps forward, his voice cold. "If that's how you feel, then perhaps it's time we wash our hands of you entirely. Good luck keeping that house without our help." As Eleanor and Vernon storm out, slamming the door behind them, a heavy silence falls over the apartment. Gideon looks shell-shocked, as if he can't quite believe what just happened. I find myself moving to sit beside him, my hand hovering uncertainly over his shoulder. "Gideon," I say softly, "are you okay?" He looks at me, tears in his eyes. "I don't know. I feel like I've just woken up from a long nightmare. How could I have been so blind?" In that moment, I see glimpses of the man I once loved, vulnerable, honest, free from his parents' influence. But I also see the years of pain and betrayal that stand between us. "It's not too late to start over," I say carefully. "Not with me, but for yourself. You deserve to live your own life, Gideon." He nods slowly, a mix of fear and hope in his eyes. I don't even know where to begin. As I stand to leave, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. The anger and bitterness I've carried for so long begin to dissipate, replaced by a sense of closure. You begin by putting one foot in front of the other, I tell him. And you keep going no matter how hard it gets. That's what I did, and look at me now. As I walk out of Gideon's apartment, I feel a surge of pride and strength. I've faced my past, stood up to Eleanor and Vernon, and come out stronger on the other side. The future stretches out before me, full of possibilities, and I'm ready to embrace it with open arms. The sun streams through the windows of my new studio, illuminating the colorful array of crafting supplies and finished projects. It's been a year since I walked away from my old life, and the transformation is nothing short of miraculous. My phone chimes with a notification. Another comment on my latest blog post. I smile as I read it. Lydia, your story has given me the courage to leave my own toxic relationship. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to start over. Messages like these flood in daily, each one a reminder that my journey has become more than just my own story. It's a beacon of hope for others trapped in situations similar to the one I escaped. The door chimes, and I look up to see Elijah walking in, a proud smile on his face. Mom, this place is amazing, he says, looking around in awe. I can't believe how much you've accomplished in just a year. I pull him into a hug, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. I couldn't have done it without your support, sweetheart. As we settle into the cozy seating area, Elijah's expression turns serious. I saw Dad yesterday, he says quietly. I feel a momentary tightness in my chest, but it passes quickly. How is he? Elijah smiles softly. He's better. He's been going to therapy, working through his issues with Grandma and Grandpa. He asked about you, actually. I raise an eyebrow, curious but not anxious. Oh, he wanted me to tell you that he's sorry for everything, and that he's proud of you, Mom, for standing up for yourself, for building this new life. Tears prick at my eyes, but they're not tears of sadness or regret. They're tears of release, of final closure on a chapter of my life that I thought would define me forever. Thank you for telling me that, Elijah, I say, squeezing his hand. I'm glad your father is finding his way. As Elijah leaves, promising to bring his wife for a visit soon, I turn back to my workbench. My hands move deftly, weaving together strands of colorful thread into an intricate pattern. Each knot, each twist represents a piece of my journey. The pain, the growth, the triumph. The bell chimes again, and I look up to see Ruth entering, her arms laden with bags of new supplies. Ready for the big craft fair this weekend? She asks, her eyes twinkling with excitement. I nod, feeling a surge of confidence. More than ready. I can't wait to share these pieces with the world. As we sort through the new materials, chatting and laughing, I'm struck by how different my life is now. The fear and uncertainty that once clouded my days have been replaced by purpose and joy. I'm no longer defined by my relationship with Gideon or my struggles with Eleanor and Vernon. I'm simply Lydia, artist, teacher, survivor. Later that evening, as I lock up the studio, I pause to look at the framed quote hanging by the door. It's the first thing I see when I enter each morning, and the last thing I see when I leave. The most beautiful things in life arise from the ashes of what we once thought we couldn't live without. I trace the words with my finger, a smile playing on my lips. How true those words have proven to be. From the ashes of my failed marriage, I've built a life more beautiful and fulfilling than I ever imagined possible. As I step out into the cool evening air, I take a deep breath, feeling the promise of tomorrow in every inhale. The path ahead is wide open, full of possibilities I'm only beginning to explore. And for the first time in decades, I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm excited by it. I may have lost the house I once called home, but I've gained something far more valuable, the knowledge that home isn't a place. It's a feeling. It's the peace that comes from being true to yourself, the strength that grows from facing your fears, and the joy that blossoms when you finally spread your wings and fly. As I walk towards my apartment, my steps light and purposeful, I know with absolute certainty that the best chapters of my story are still to come. And I can't wait to write them, one day at a time, with my own hands and my own heart. This is not an ending. It's a beautiful, brave new beginning.